Hello and welcome to the video evaluation of my game Recoherence. The brief for this project was to create media to show on a 3-screen display like this one. In all of my works as part of this course I have tried to make use of the unique form factor included in the brief. In this case I wanted to create a game that not only used all 3 screens at once but could only be played with 3 screens. When the player starts the game they are greeted by this scientist. Incidentally, his name is Gary. The 3-screen mechanic in my game is loosely based on quantum mechanics, with the protagonist and inciting event based on Schrödinger's cat experiment. As such, these concepts are explained to the player by Gary. On the other screen is an animation made using my digital artwork. This serves as a visual representation of what Gary is talking about. While the videos are playing, the player can explore this small environment and get a feel for how the cat controls. They may notice these screens in the room that also show the 2 videos. The protagonist of this game is a cat, which in itself is a medium as unique as having 3 screens. As such, I wanted to explore how that might change the experience, allowing the player to knock things off counters and encouraging them to explore the environment, which, in some cases, is greatly rewarded. At the end of the video, Gary asked the player to go through the door marked Lab to begin the experiment. This can be done at any point as I felt it was unrealistic to expect the average player to sit through the 4¼ minutes of quantum mechanics that is Gary's monologue. Approaching the door causes it to open automatically, showing this corridor that poses a striking difference to the room the player has just left. This is the player's first indication that the game, and the environment they are in, may not be all that it seems. As the player progresses down the corridor, the doors open ahead of them, but after reaching a certain point, a box will fall down and trap them, triggering the next level. Gotcha! The last action the game takes before loading the next level is to set the UI to be this image. This causes it to remain on the screen until the next level has loaded, acting as a rudimentary loading screen. This image is also shown on any screens that show the scientist's monologue or the accompanying animation once they have ended. In the next level, the player finds themselves in this steel chamber. Looking behind them, they will see this cuboid protrusion and a bottle on top. These items are supposed to reinforce that the player is in the apparatus for Schrödinger's experiment, something that they will have learned about in Gary's video. This is the first level of the game where the core mechanic becomes available to the player, switching realities. As you can see, the chamber that the cat is in only exists in the bottom 2 realities, so switching to the top one will allow them to escape. In Schrödinger's experiment, there is a radioactive atom which may decay. If it does, there is a system in place which will result in the death of the cat. The idea of the experiment is that the cat's state of being alive or dead will be entangled in the atom's quantum state of being decayed or not. In the story of the game, the 3 universes, and therefore the 3 screens, are respective to the outcome of the experiment. In the left screen, the radioactive substance in the experiment decayed, which killed the cat. In the right, it didn't, so the cat lives. The top reality is in a state of flux put on by the cat remaining in a quantum state, despite the laws of physics suggesting that this is impossible. This therefore sets up the naming conventions of the screens, left being dead or decayed, right being alive or not decayed, and the top being flux or superposition or broken. This also explains why some objects are or aren't present in the different realities and how they may act differently. Having escaped the chamber, the player is able to exit the control room by this door and progress to the next level, which is the testing areas of the facility. This area is a lot less detailed than the previous ones as it is designed by the scientists to test their experiments. Here, the player can begin to experiment with the screen switching mechanic and its uses when platforming. At this point, the player has likely noticed the colour coding of the objects that do not exist in all 3 realities, or can be interacted with. This colour scheme is consistent across all media. The booklet I made in graphics uses it when trying to explain the 3-screen mechanic to make it clear which screen is being referred to. The colour scheme in the game has 2 purposes, making it easier to see the differences between realities and pointing out which way to go. This control over what is seen on which screen and which objects can interact with what allowed me to create these cubes. They can be interacted with by the player, but only when in the correct reality. They also cannot interact with objects from other realities, such as this box in the top screen not being able to interact with the platform in the right screen. The cat has animations for walking, jumping, falling, and standing. The walking animation came with the model, but the jumping, falling and standing that are singular positions that are blended between. The walking and standing animations are blended between based on the cat's horizontal velocity, and the jumping and falling are blended based on the cat's z velocity. If the cat's z velocity goes below 1000, meaning they are falling from a height, the cat's legs begin to splay into the skydiving shape. The skydiving position was originally for the dropper section of the game, but I found I needed a more streamlined position to increase visibility. Having successfully completed this level by jumping between the platforms in each reality, the player is transported to the second type of level. The story is that, after the cat escapes the facility, they spend some time exploring the local village, such as this house. Back page of my game booklet is a poster asking for people to volunteer their cats for use in this experiment. This house appears to have done so, and so there are certain differences between the two bottom realities which can be explained by the cat having died in one of the realities. This section of the game has the potential to be a commentary on the use of animals in science if I were to develop it further. My biggest challenge when making this level was getting players to understand the path through the level. Originally, this coffee table was on the other side of the dining table, and the player was spawned next to the door on the other side of this wall. But I found that this arrangement made it take a significant amount of time for players to figure out what they were supposed to do. This new arrangement of furniture and spawn point made it easier for players to figure out where they were supposed to go. This was also helped by the introduction of the colour coding, pointing out which objects they may want to try and jump on. The path through the level is to jump on the coffee table, then the dining table, then the misplaced dining table in the top reality, then, using the misplaced dining table in the top reality, jump to the low counter by the wall. Switching and jumping up the furniture against the wall in the style of a ladder, the player is able to jump onto this cabinet and then down to the shelf. Here, the cat pushes one or all of these cubes off the end of the shelf. This means that if they fail to jump to the stool, or any subsequent jump before finishing the level, they are able to continue from this point instead of having to start from the beginning. I feel these sorts of saves are important to reduce frustration in players. Similarly, this shelf was extended to be close to the floating cabinet, as one playtester managed to fall down between them. Leaving the main progression of the level for a moment, if the player comes around the corner into the kitchen, they can find that the oven is different in the realities. Jumping on the open door will cause it to snap shut and trap the cat inside. The solution is to switch realities and push one of the other doors open. Opening the door in the right reality allows the player to jump onto the counter, which gives them access to this soap and the secret level. This level is inspired by droppers. My first experience of these was in Minecraft, but more recently It Takes Two, which I researched and timed to try and find a good balance of obstacles and the distances between them. I wanted to experiment with how the reality switching mechanic could affect this type of game. As you can see, there is a bar of soap following the cat's head, and successfully completing the level will allow the player to wear it as a hat for the remainder of the game. Losing all 9 lives, however, will cause the player to be kicked out of the secret and given a dunce hat, at which point this sound effect plays. This sound effect is a reference to A Wet Day in Hell, the game I worked on during a game jam the students took part in last year. The player is able to re-enter the level by going into the sink, which will allow them to complete the level and still earn the soap hat. The victory noise at the end of this section is also from A Wet Day in Hell. All of the movable objects in this scene are linked to booleans that are stored in a game instance object. This object persists between levels and allows me to ensure that the player's changes, such as interacting with the oven or the save cube, are saved when the level is unloaded and reloaded when playing the secret level. This game instance also saves which hat the cat is wearing and which reality they are in at the end of the level. This is used to equip the hat in the next level and ensure that the cat spawns in the same reality it ended the last one. On the subject of secrets, pressing the M key on the keyboard or any of the directions on the D-pad will cause the cat to meow. Each time, a sound effect is picked out of a list of 4 possible sounds, but there is a 1 in 100 chance of the cat roaring instead. This roar is also a reference to A Wet Day in Hell, being the sound the Leonard enemy would make when it saw the player. Finishing the level using the save point and then jumping across these stools, the player is brought to the final level of the game. At points in development, there were ideas about having a boss fight of sorts, running away from scientists that fired lasers that would stick the cat in one reality for a time period, making escape harder. The player would ultimately be captured by these scientists and put in this cell. The player can escape the cell via these vents and come to this room. This room is particularly difficult and includes my favourite use of the reality switching mechanic. Here, the player has to jump off this chest, switch reality to get through the curtain, and then switch back in order to land on the table. Jumping over these smaller cabinets allows the cat to reach this button, which will open the door. Progressing to the end of the level from here is simple, and the game ends with the cat jumping on this control panel. The story for this would be that the cat must destroy the reactor, this one that can be seen through the window, as that is what is causing the recoherence, keeping the cat in the quantum state. With the game over, the player is shown these credits. As the game was quite short and mostly made by me, these are here to serve as one last joke to leave the player with, and to credit some of the people who had work shown in the game, such as Mark, who helped record the scientist's monologue and is the voice of the other scientist heard in the video. John, who had the idea for the dunce hat and made it for me. Tom, who asked to be credited in as many projects as possible, and Tony, who took over 60 attempts to complete the dropper level. To the left of the screen there is also a counter for how many times the player pressed the meow button during their playthrough. Below the credits, the player is able to press the red button to exit the game or the green one to restart.